Hey guys, how's it going? Good afternoon. This is going to be the one-on-one mentoring session with Ross. I'm going to go ahead and set up this room real quick and then we'll get started shortly. So let me just get this set up right here. Right. Looks like we are good to go. Let me get this link sent out over to Ross real quick. It looks like he's making his way in. So let's get a few moments for him to join in.
Hey there.
Hey Ross, how's it going? Like your background over there.
Yeah. I wish I was there actually. I'm in an office here that I put that on because I've got a bunch of paintings behind me that I painted and they're not that good.
I bet they're better than what I could paint though, I'm sure.
I like them actually, but I just they're hard to see from this far anyway. So
Gotcha. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I'd love to be there too, especially with this weather. It's cold weather that we're running into.
yeah. Hawaii's always fun. Well,
Yeah.
thanks, man. You've been a real blessing here, and I kept hearing you say let's do this one on one, and I thought that'd be just crazy not to take advantage of it. So
Yeah, definitely. Mhm.
it's been a great ride, man.
Awesome. So how's your trading been like overall? Has it been getting better, more consistent?
It's about the same. You know, at times I was getting a lot of like people that were like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? So I haven't really posted profits or anything lately.
Um,
Um, I would say overall it's been a lot better since I've, gotten into this program, but it's
mhm.
still certainly something I want to continue to learn and take advantage of. It's the best I've found so far. I definitely need some sprucing up though. There's been mistakes and losses, and there's been gains, and there's been a lot of good things, but mostly gains. Um,
That's good to hear.
I I mean the feedback or the couple things that I've thought of, recently that I think might help you even is
Mhm.
I mean, so I hear you saying I'm going to stress these couple different, techniques and
Mhm.
whatnot, and I think I think they're good and everything. Um, it just seems like they're a little bit hard to understand compared to. For me, it's easy, but I could see where some people might be like, "Wait a minute, that's tough to understand." I don't know how your response has been, but I mean, it seems easy enough, right? To just pick a zone or a. But like this morning, we were trading on several charts, and on the 1 minute, we were just saying, okay, when this turns red or green, we were going to take the trade. And I kept thinking, I wonder, I mean, I knew why we were going to take the trade, but I wonder if they really know why we were going to take the trade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I agree with you 100%. I think that people who do get it, they really get it because it just, it just resonates well. But I do think it is a bit difficult. And that's why I've been like putting myself out there to see who actually needs help. Nobody's actually reached out for help. So I'm not sure if everyone gets it or if, people are just scared to ask for help. But yeah, I mean, I can see where the issue is because it's a little more fast paced and a little more difficult, I guess, if people can't follow along because, we have three separate charts compared to just looking at one. there's so many different scenarios that can come up, and realistically, we're just anticipating for these moves to happen. Like for example, today there was no smooth market movement, so we were basically looking for things to align, and I was basically looking for one specific thing, but I was also putting out another scenario. So I could see where people could get confused there, since we were going from the 5 minute to the 10 minute to the 1 minute, and then back to the 10 minute when things didn't align. And I think that's where the confusion might arise. But for the most part, I haven't really gotten any questions from anybody. I've tried to get questions because I want to see where people are having issues with it. But for the most part, nobody's really, reached out regarding these specific strategies.
Yeah. And I mean, so like, for example, like this morning, you probably can't see my cursor, right?
We can switch over your screen. If you want to share your screen, you can just go to screen share. I think there's a button right there on your Zoom. It should say, I'm sharing mine right now, but you can, once you share your screen, it'll take over.
Let's see. So I think that's going to be, I think that's one of these. Let's see. It seemed like last time I did that, it was easy, and I just don't see those options on this one. So what I have is I have all the charts up in the middle, and then, oh, here we go, view options.
Yeah, it should be like a big green button, I believe. It's like new share or something like that.
It says you are viewing your screen. Request, hide, zoom. Stop participants sharing. No. So I don't see how I can share mine with you. I can see the top, it says you are viewing, and that's you. And then under options, it's,
let's see.
Request more control, maybe.
I think so. There should be a button on the Zoom, like right in the middle. It says new share, and if you click on that, it'll let you choose your screen, and then it'll just take over the screen, because you can you're the co-host. So basically, when you share your screen, it'll just override mine. But here, let's do this. I could also like stop sharing mine, and maybe your option will come up there. So let's see if you could find.
I don't see exactly what I thought I was going to. So yours just, what I kind of want to do is get on your screen and show you kind of what I was seeing.
Oh, you want to get on my screen? Okay.
So yeah, sorry, and just use my cursor.
So, oh yeah. So use this tool over here. If you go to more, there's going to be this button that says, or actually it says annotate. So there's like a pen.
Annotate.
Yeah, annotate. And then when you have that on there, it'll pull up. You can draw on the screen, so you can draw basically where my screen is.
And so I like basically have control.
Yeah, well, not of the actual screen, but you can like hey, you can see how you're drawing right there.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to see if you can see that. Okay. So here's kind of my question. So I was doing, I would say, better when we had like, we had pivots, and we had, I can't remember the names right now. It's been kind of a crazy day. So yeah. When you have the double bodies, I was doing much better back then. And so we changed to these new strategies where we're trying to identify according to what I'm learning. And I mean, I don't want to, I want you to talk, but I want to make this kind of where I'm struggling. So right here, I see that this is a low and that's a high, and that's a low and that's a high. And so in this case, we've got a red over here, and we've got mixed, right? So there's no trade really because the 5 is off. But let's assume this 5 is also red. So we would wait for this to, like, there's just no trade unless we do a pivot scalp because it's below the 2 or 3. Well, it's not below this last pivot though, is it? Is that a pivot right there? This last line right here? Right here?
Sorry, I'm trying to see. This one's on the left, right?
Maybe blow up the 1 minute all the way.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that. There we go.
Yeah. So is that, yeah, that's a pivot. So actually this red isn't below the pivots. So the trade here would be if this comes down and closes below the pivot down here, below this low, right? Essentially, because below this pivot, this line, this red line is a pivot. And if it closes below there, that's a pivot scalp, right? If everything's red.
Sorry, you lost me there. Let's see. So yeah, so if you had a sell signal here, then yes, it would be a pivot scalp entry. I think what you might be doing is you might be kind of overcomplicating the strategy, because realistically, it's the same strategy. It's just that the only thing that you're doing with this is using the other time frames to confirm the direction. So it's literally just a pivot scalp entry. So it's nothing changed there. It's the same exact strategy. The only difference is that you're making sure that the confluence lines up with the higher time frame. So for the 5 minute, you want to make sure it's bearish. 10 minute, you want to make sure it's bearish, but the 1 minute doesn't change. Literally the same strategy. You're just having a multiple confluence. That's why a lot of people find it a lot easier, because it's like more of a step-by-step rather than just basing everything off the 1 minute. Because like literally you're looking from the 10 to the 5. If everything's bearish there, then if you see a pivot scalp on the 1 minute, it's the same strategy, and then you're just entering from there. So yeah, like you mentioned, if there was a sell signal over here, then yes, that would be an entry for a pivot scalp.
Because we have this sell signal, it's way back over here. Even if this goes below the pivot, it's not an entry.
No, all entries are based off the momentum. So that's why a lot of people like this, because that's literally all you're looking for. It's like a lot simpler than like everything else. I think you might be like mixing some things up, or you might be confusing things. And that's where, you might be getting lost in like the translation here, but realistically, you're only looking for the momentum. So all your entries are based off momentum. You don't care if price swings below the pivots. You don't care if there's a double top or a high or a low here. None of that stuff matters. The only thing you're worrying about is whether you have a signal here. So for example, if you have a buy signal, that's literally all you're looking for. You have a buy signal here, there goes your entry. Once you have the bullish momentum on everything, you don't care about the highs, you don't care about the lows, you don't care about the pivots out realistically. You just want to make sure that it's, in that same trend.
Right. So my goal is to kind of get away from most trades and just take really awesome trades.
Yeah.
But I'm finding myself in the middle of here trying to figure out a way to trade outside of really what you're teaching, I think, in a way. Because, and I'm glad you just explained that to me, and I'm just trying to be honest here. So, like I'm sitting here saying, well, if that fell below here and everything's red, including the 5, which it wasn't, but if everything was red and it falls below this pivot and closes, even though the sell signal's clear back over here, I was thinking that was an entry. So you're right. That's where I was getting confused, because I was getting like multiple confluences, thinking it was a triple confluence or something like that. So I would take that, and then I started losing a lot of those, and I was like, okay, now I got to get serious about this and figure out why I'm losing. I think you just figured it out.
Yeah, I think because you have like knowledge of the other strategies, it's kind of confusing for you. For a lot of people who are like just joining and they're like fresh and new to everything, it's a lot easier for them, because realistically, you're just looking for the momentum, because all the entries are based off the momentum. So like you're basically waiting until everything's below. Like for example, here on the 10, when price is below right here, and I'll rewind to like this point in time, so it's like easier for you to really see. There was an entry right here at 11, right? So like, for example, I'm going to go back and just replay to this point so that you can see like what realistically what we're looking for, because I could see where the confusion may arise, but realistically, like, so this is at 11:18, right? Let's go over here to 11:18 on the 5-minute. 11:18 right here on the 5-minute. And then, and I'll simplify it as much as possible, because I think this will help you out. I think because of the requirements, it's a little confusing. And also because we're anticipating other moves, we're basically forecasting where price is going to go. That's where the confusion kind of arises. But realistically, over here on the 10, you're just making sure price is below the pivots, trend meters red. Same with the 5, price is below the pivots, trend meters red. You have a sell signal, you have a sell signal. Everything here is bearish, right? So here's the checklist. Basically, you start on the 10, make sure it's a bearish trend, price is below the pivots, trend meters red. It doesn't matter like how these are angled. If they're angling down, that's perfectly fine. So you have the confirmation of a bearish trend here. Now you want to see where momentum's at. You have a sell momentum here. So that's checked off. Once you check that off, you're good with the 10. You can move on to the 5. When you look at the 5 here, you're looking for the same thing. Make sure that you're in a bearish trend. Price is below the pivots, trend meters red. Everything here is indicating a sell trend. Now you want to look at momentum. It's the same thing as a 10, right? Bearish trend, bearish momentum. Once you have this, you don't even have to look at these at all. You can just go straight to the 1 minute, and your entry here is going to be based off the sell signal. So this is like really what the strategy is. You're looking for the confluence, but once you have the confluence, you can just ignore the 5 and 10. And looking over here on the 1, there's no sell signal yet, right? Once you get a sell signal, that's going to be your entry point right there.
So it's not even where it is in conjunction to the pivots necessarily, because I was always watching for that too.
Yeah. So not really. Well, over here, it's pretty obvious, when price is below the pivots, it's going to be aligned with it. But that's just the direction of price. So like, for example, if price was above bullish, the 5 minute and 10 minute wouldn't be in this, it wouldn't be bearish at all, right? Because the 1 minute's going to align with those, because the 1 minute follows the higher time frame. So if the higher time frames are already pointing down, the 1 minute's likely to follow in that direction. So like, for example, here, once you have this set up, you probably wouldn't take the entry here because the sessions is there, but I'm just, for example purposes, this is all you're looking for. The sell signal, have everything lined up for a sell bias, and then you just enter from that point there.
Yeah, let me ask you here on this tan where my cursor is.
Yes.
It looks like to me that the pivot hits right here. So is that considered below the pivot still?
Let's see. Try to enable your I don't think your annotate is on, because I don't see anything on my screen.
Oh, is it off? Let's see. I just clicked. Can you see me? Let me try to draw something. Oh yeah, I must be. What happened here? I thought I had some. Nope, I'm not drawing anymore.
Yeah, there should be an annotate button, and it'll be like a marker or pencil sign.
Man, I had that.
It should be on the Zoom bar. So on the Zoom bar where it has new share, remote control.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. There you go. Awesome.
So right here, it looks like to me that pivot hits right there where my blue dot is. Okay. It looks like that pivot comes down and hits right. It comes down and like this. See that? And it hits right there. So is that still considered below? I mean, that's what or is that not a pivot?
Yeah, it's not a pivot. That would be the high low. The pivot's actually above. So you can see the pivots are the green, yellow, orange, and red.
Okay, so you must have on something that tracks. See, I turned mine off because I couldn't tell what was a pivot and these things.
Yeah, I can turn that off for you so it's not confusing. There you go.
There we go. Okay, that
high lows.
You're like going, it's below, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's not below.
Yeah, because the high lows aren't required for this specific strategy. If you're applying the high-low momentum pivot scalp, which is in conjunction with this strategy, you can use that as a confluence. That's where you would use the high-low, but it's not really necessary. It just gives you an extra confirmation because that's how you identify supply and demand using the indicator.
Yeah, let's walk through that again because those have been really helpful for me. So when you programmed this, you programmed it so that those high and lows come in as those signals, and I noticed that they're green and then they're red, but when do they reset to go back to when they're green again? Because let's turn them back on and let me show you an example.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. So the time when they're high is when they're higher highs, and when they're lower lows, they become red. So basically when price is going downwards, they become red. When price is going upwards, so say for example, you can see how, let me just maximize this real quick. So you can see how like this candle over here, this next high closes above it, right?
Right.
So that's why it turns green right there, because it indicates that, the highs are closing higher. And then vice versa, for example, over here, you can see how it's red because we have a high, we have a low. This is a lower high. This is a lower low, a lower high again here, which is lower than the previous one. But this low over here is actually higher than this one. Do you see where it's making the difference? It's basically whenever the highs are higher than the previous high, or when the lows are higher than the previous low, that's when they change color. But when they go lower, then they change back to red.
Okay, so that can be really helpful. And I mean, that's what I think, that particular thing right there has helped me a lot. The pivots are really helpful, but that's a big help for me because I don't know that I've been able to, draw zones and stuff like we're doing now. And of course, I don't think you are drawing zones anymore, right? Like right now, this morning, I don't think we drew the zone.
Yeah, so we don't really, those zones were for the SR scalp strategy. Since we're not really applying them on the live, we don't necessarily use them. The zones that I do draw are if we're applying the high-low momentum pivot scalp. So it's a different type of zone. It's not an SR zone, considered support and resistance. The one that we draw for for the live sessions now are we're basically identifying supply and demand. So it's kind of similar to support resistance, but supply and demand is basically where like orders are sitting. I'm not sure if you're familiar with supply and demand or like how those are identified.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so basically, when we have a momentum signal and then we have price pushing away from it. So we have a momentum signal, but momentum is pushing away from the zone. Like for example, right here, this is we're basically predicting that this will be considered a supply zone, right? Because typically when you have a supply, you have price push heavily away from a specific zone. So when you have a momentum right here pushing away from the specific zone, we're basically predicting that this is going to be considered a supply. Because what happens a lot of times when people trade supply and demand is that they don't identify it until way later, right? They have to wait for it to actually move. But since we have these indicators here, we can actually predict where it's going to be before it actually has that move. So we can actually get in when price is moving, vice versa, when price is moving the other direction, opposed to like when you're trading it differently. You've seen how other people trade supply and demand where they identified the supply, but it's like, wait, it's done already. Like the move is already finished and they wait for it to retest. But for us, we're trading off momentum. So like when we see momentum push off supply, instead of waiting for it to come and retest, you can just enter it right away. You kind of get what I'm saying there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. And so in this case right here, I like to go back and kind of review. So this case right here, what we're saying is this inside this red momentum bar, this rejected off of that supply zone right there.
Yes.
That's what we're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. So what we're doing here is we're basically forecasting it before it actually happens. So when we do see it right here, we're already predicting that, okay, this is going to be supply. So if it's a supply, typically what happens when these supplies are established is that you see a big push happen right after, right?
Right.
So that's basically where we're identifying to make our entry. So if we see something like this, we're like, okay, if this is the case, then yeah, I can make an entry here because I'm already predicting that price is going to drop X amount, and it eventually does.
So let's go back to how I'm understanding this, because this is I mean, honestly, this is making a big difference in my life. So it's really important that, yeah, thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this high and this low is before, I mean, because I'm very particular on how I like to understand things. So this high and this low right here are right below this bar. And so when this bar comes up, this momentum bar, because this wick touched this exact supply zone, we should know, or we can't ever be exactly accurate, but some degree of certainty that from this point on, we're going to see somewhat of a downtrend. That's what we're saying.
Exactly. We're anticipating a momentum push to the downside. So like, typically when you see momentum, the way that, or when you identify supply, you basically, you see it after it happens, right? So when people identify supply and demand, they see the momentum push after it already happened. For us, we're a step ahead. So we're actually getting in while the movement's actually happening.
Yeah. And the part I just don't understand is how does this supply, I mean, so the reason we know this is going to go down is because this, where I drew this, okay, this right here, and then this together, those two things together, where that wicked off of there, are predicting this supply to be down again, one more candle or more. That's what we're really saying, because this right here wicked off of this momentum signal and this candle inside of it wicked off of the supply zone right there, right? That's what we're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And you can see it back here as well. Like if you want to just go and practice this, because this is how I actually came up with the strategy. I was taking them in both directions. I was just literally identifying every single supply and demand area that I could possibly identify. And I would just see how price had moved from it. The way I improved it was because there was a lot of entries, obviously, if you're going to be testing all these different supply and demand possibilities, in order for me to improve it, that's when I incorporated the trend. So I could only trade in the direction of the trend. So like, for example, there's another one right here, right before it. Let me just rewind real quick. And it's the same exact pattern. It's you have a sell momentum right there. Trend meter is neutral, so it's going from bullish to neutral right here. And then you just draw your zone over here, and you just want to make sure price is pushing away. So we're basically predicting that this is going to be, again, a supply zone, right? Because we have the supply right here. We're anticipating a momentum push to the downside, and that's where the entry would basically be. So you let the trade run, and then again, same situation there, where we basically predict it before it actually happens.
So when you did that, you're doing something kind of similar to what I do, but how did you get that to lock on that top and on that bottom and then draw it? Because when I do it, it draws it, but what are you selecting right before you? Because
I'd like to, right? Yeah.
You're pretty quick over there on the left.
Yeah. So right here, you use the magnet tool.
Yep.
And so I'll click on the rectangle tool first, and then I'll click on the magnet. And then what happens is your cursor will automatically lock on to either the high, the body, or the lower here. So I'll just click on the high here, drop down to the bottom of the candle, click, and then it highlights the entire candle. So it's like exactly on point.
Yeah. So if that, so this being green doesn't matter. We have a, so at this point, we're assuming the 10 and the 5. So the 10, I'll be Sean here for a minute. Here we go. Look at this. You impressed? 10 and the 5 are all pointing down, right?
Exactly.
See, this is pretty fun. Okay, so then we know that this supply zone it sort of looks like a false, because it looks green to me and it looks like it's going up, and then it hits this momentum signal going down. So then you can predict it going down after that. So that's actually a pretty, I mean, how accurate do you think this thing is?
So Maddie, he loves to trade supply and demand. That's like his thing. He loves to trade supply and demand. So like what I tried to do is help him figure out a way to incorporate my indicators to help him identify proper supply and demand. Because the thing with supply and demand is that it's very subjective, right? Like you don't know it's going to happen until it's actually happened. So in order to really take advantage of supply and demand, you have to actually identify it before it actually happens. Because by the time you identify it, looking at a naked chart, it's already moved at that point. Like, for example, you'll see people identify this as supply, and the times that people actually like to enter supply and demand is when it retests. But sometimes it'll never retest, right? It'll just keep dropping lower and lower and lower. And at that point, you miss your entire move right here. So for me personally, I've tested it enough to like incorporate it in my own strategies. Maddie's actually tested it a lot, and he like lives by it now. He thinks that this is like the correct way to identify. Well, not the correct way, because there's no correct way. Obviously, everyone applies supply and demand differently. But he's found this way to be the most accurate, as long as you're identifying overall direction. So like you mentioned here, the 5 and 10, if everything's bearish on those time frames and you're looking for supply and demand, then typically, it's going to move in that direction. From my experience, from applying these strategies, ever since we started to implement the 2 main strategies on the live, I don't think we've ever had an actual loss, like applying it properly. We've had a loss where I've made a mistake, and it was me entering a trade without confirming on the other time frames. But applying the strategy on its own during the live session times, basically 6:30 to 8, there hasn't been any issues. You might run into issues outside of the live session times, because obviously the market moves differently. From like 8 until 10, it's consolidating and ranging. So obviously it's going to be tough to identify supply and demand, because you're going to get a lot of these buy and sell momentums, and then you're also going to get a ranging movement. Like, for example, right here, price is just ranging. So if you were to identify supply and demand here, which you can, it still works. So like, for example, right here, we have a zone right there. Let me just clean the chart up a little bit. There is a zone right here. So this would technically still be an entry for a sell. It's just you'd be holding on to this position for a long time before it actually has any movement. It eventually would hit, but it does consolidate for quite a bit. Let me see, it consolidates for about 6 hours until it hits you, maybe 7 hours later. So for me personally, if you apply this during high volatile market times, like the morning sessions when you trade, I think it has a very high probability of hitting. Trading outside of that, I can't really say, because I don't even trade myself out of those times most of the time. So I can't really confirm it myself personally. But Matt uses it all the time, and he says it works well. So
so I just realized we were on the 10 on this. I thought we were on the 1.
Oh yeah,
10 would be over here. that's okay. The strategy is the exact same, right? It's just it moves faster on the one.
Exactly. Yeah. On the one, you're going to have more entries and it's going to come up more often. But this works on basically any, you can use it on other time frames too. The main focus for this strategy initially was to be on the higher time frames because I was looking for something to implement on Forex entries, for longer term periods. But I started to realize that this actually works really good on the shorter time frames because that's where you get the quick moves. You'll get a bit of consolidation, and once you can identify supply and demand and momentum pushing away from it, it's going to be enough to push to your TP if we're only going for 100 pips or so.
Yeah. So on a 1 minute, you're going 10:30 on. Well, let's just assume we're all on the same TFF or something, which is 10:30. Same as TFF's the same as trading view.
That's the only, yeah, yes. Yeah, so yeah, points.
Yeah, and then FTMO would be 1,000 and 3,000, right?
Yeah, I think they're on like micro lot sizing, so
yeah,
you have to add like 2 zeros to it.
Yeah. So so assume we're on that. We're so the 10. I'm writing this down. So the 10 minute or the 1 minute is 10:30, and the 5 minute is
for the 5 minute. So I don't trade it on the 5 minute, but I've seen other people trade it on the 5 minute. They usually use a 25.50. So that's a closer risk to reward. It's a 1 to 2 instead of 1 to 3.
25.50 on the 5, huh?
Yeah, and then I think on the 10, people just use a 1 to 1, a 50-50. So yeah, obviously you'll have a better risk to reward on the higher time frames, but it's going to be more difficult to find entries because of the obviously the movement. Because if you're taking an entry on the 10 minute and you're trading during the New York session, you're probably going to hold on to that position into Asia session, if not London, if you end up holding on to that position into market close, because the volatility starts to die down towards the end. So if you enter a trade, say 12 p.m. or noon, and then the market closes at 1, you're going to be stuck in that position for a couple hours until you get deep into the Asia session.
Yeah, last time we had a mentoring, I was gonna I actually took one of your strategies and I tested it for quite a while. I never got back to you on it because it turned out to be not quite what I was hoping on the results. So I figured we would just move on, and we kind of did. This one, no, I think the lower the time frame for me would work better, just because I'm not really a patient. Like those trades when it ranges and then I get in them, it seems like they go the opposite way on me over time. So
yeah, and they stress you out throughout the time too. When you're checking on it every couple minutes, every couple hours, and you're like, wow, hasn't moved at all.
Yeah, that's just a rough deal. Or that just something like lately, something will just happen. It'll just spike down and just nick my, stop loss. So, okay, that's that. So, what other strategies are we talking about in the mornings? Because that's a powerful strategy, no question.
Yeah. Well, those are the main ones. So the main one would be the momentum scalp, and then the thing with the other strategy that I was referring to, the high level momentum pivot scalp, it's pretty much the same strategy. The only difference is that you're identifying the supply and demand zone. So like that's exactly what I just showed you just now.
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing. So if I put the requirements up here, I'll put them side by side. You'll see that they're pretty much the same thing. It's just that the high level momentum pivot scalp requires one more requirement on top of it. So like for the momentum scalp, you're confirming the overall direction of the trend. You're confirming the overall direction of momentum. So you're basically looking for direction of momentum to align. You're doing the same thing here for the high level momentum pivot scalp. So like for step 4 over here, you want to confirm overall direction of trend and momentum. So you're doing the same exact thing as the momentum scalp. It's just you're taking another step here, and you're confirming that you have a wick or a candle rejection off the high. So like say, for example, here you're looking for a sell. You have a high right here. And you can see that this right here is rejecting off that structure, right? So if this candle is rejecting off the structure, this would align for an entry for both. Let me move this down a little bit. This would align for an entry for both strategies. So you'd actually have an entry for both the high level momentum pivot scalp, and then you have an entry here for a momentum scalp. Once you have that lined up, like if I see an entry like this where they both line up, this trade is like almost guaranteed to win, because the winning probability for one of them is very high already. If you have both of them line up on the same exact candle, then odds of this hitting are very likely. So you hit your basically fixed TP stop loss right there. You let the trade run, and it literally goes like straight to profit target off the.
So let's talk about the differences real quick again, because I think identify momentum signal is valid. That's like the red there.
Yeah.
And we're on the one. So draw a zone, high, low before momentum. So same thing we did before there.
Mm-hmm.
Now where's let's see, confirm momentum is rejecting off zone. So
yeah, so that's the main difference. Like for the momentum scalp, you don't have to draw a zone. If you saw the entry here, you'd be perfectly fine. That'd be the entry already. The only difference is that on this strategy, you're identifying a zone. So right here, you do have the zone, and that's going to make it for this strategy here.
Yeah, so I think this morning you were not drawing the zone, because I remember looking and saying, you were saying, as soon as this momentum signal comes up at the sell, we were not drawing the zone this morning. That's where I was at.
Yeah. So I was thinking about it, but I didn't draw any because there wasn't a zone there, because it was too obvious for me. So if I go over here to let me just go back to this morning's session at 6 o'clock. So right here at, I believe it was 6:30 right here. So I'll just go back to it from 8 o'clock, and we can just go back and review the entries here, or the momentum signal. So we had a sell signal right here, and we had a zone above here, but it wasn't touching it. So I was looking at it, but I already knew that it wasn't touching it, so I didn't draw it there, because the you can see from this candle right here, it's getting close to it, but it's not actually rejecting off it. So it has to actually be within the zone and then pushing away from it. Right here, you can see it's really close, but it's not actually rejecting off it. Same with this one over here. Same thing again. I identified it myself, but there was I already knew it wasn't going to touch it because it's so far. So this momentum signal is down here. The zone's like too far from it. So I already knew it was going to touch it. Again, right here, another sell signal. We were only looking for sells. That's why I'm only looking at the sells here. Let me clean this up a little bit. Again, at this time, you see again here, it's not touching it, right?
Right.
So I was looking at it. I wasn't making it clear, because I already knew in my head, there's no point in me drawing it, because I already knew there was no zone there, or there was no zone that was being rejected off.
Yeah.
So there was actually one here though. So this one was here, but I think there was news at this time. So we did look at this entry and we wanted to take it. I think the sessions was it the sessions?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There was something in this area. It was like news price or something.
Yeah. And that's where I got to get better too, is I got to draw all those on my chart. I've been drawing a lot of stuff on my chart, but I haven't always done news and stuff. And it's kind of caught me a few times.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. The red flags are going to be, one of the key things to always have on your chart: opening price, news price, the sessions as well. I almost didn't have the sessions on my chart this morning when you were looking at the breakout, and then the breakout was like literally at the session. So, it does make a huge difference having those lines on your chart to avoid.
Yeah, and I think today's the first day in like 3 or 4 days that hasn't worked. The breakout's been pretty solid over the last several days, but not today.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not today. Today the market was it was very volatile. I was tempted to take it, but since the overall direction wasn't going the same way with regard to retail sentiment, fundamentals, and the technicals, I just didn't feel good about it. So I'm glad we didn't take it, because that thing went the complete opposite as soon as it closed out.
Yeah, and that was almost easy to predict. We could have done an opposite on it in a way, because it was just looking like it was moving really weird. You almost could say, well, it's going to go against. Like it looked like it was going to come down, but then at the end of the day, the market ended down. But it was too short of a time frame. It went up. But if I recall, it was a big sell, and then it went straight up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was like literally right here, I believe. Yeah, it was a sell signal. Yeah. And the problem with this too, or like the thing that I was worried about when I was looking at the entry here, because this was the breakout, I did see that. I think this is what kind of threw me off, the big wicks on the prior candles. Like I saw these whenever I see wicks like this, I'm like, okay, when I see something, I know something's brewing, right? Like something's going to happen that's going to move kind of crazy here. And this is kind of what threw me off. So when I saw the sell signal here, I wanted to take it, but I had a feeling that this was going to spike up, and yeah, eventually it did spike up right here. Big wicks on both sides, and then huge spike right here. It was a big
one. That thing was that. Yeah, I wasn't in it, but I was going to get in it at the last minute, and that thing, wow.
Yeah, this
thing. The time I was looking at it, it was already all the way up here, and then it hit a double body right there, though.
Oh yeah, no, it did. It did hit a double body right here, and I think that was a reversal, actually. Yeah, so that was actually a V1 right there, a V1 double body.
Yeah, see, when we were trading those, I was killing it when we were just trading that right there.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it actually, now that I think of it, those variations do work well if you have an overall direction, like how we're using now the 3 time frames. I think you can still apply it and you'll find really good entries, especially if because I know Maddie still does it. So I see Maddie apply the entries every so often, and he locks in profit all the time. Like he's doing the high-low quick scalps, the variations. He's doing a lot of things. And you can see from other people in the group as well. Other people are still applying the other strategies, and they're using it in conjunction with my analysis, because my analysis is actually a lot more accurate since we're looking at different time frames versus just the 1 minute.
Yeah. I've always looked at multiple time frames before. When I first got with you, we weren't, but I'd always done that before I got with you, and I kind of went away from it. And now we're back. It actually works pretty well, I think, in a way. I mean, I think it's pretty solid to check. The more you can get, confirmations and stuff, the better. If we went back to those 2 differences on those 2.
Yeah, no, definitely.
We're talking about, they were on there, and I was going to ask you before we moved out of it, but the difference is, one is we're checking the time frames on all of them, and one of them we're just taking it if it hits the zone. That's what we're saying.
No, so the main difference is that you're just drawing the zone on this one, because if you look at step 4 right here, step 4 is actually the entire strategy for the other one. So confirm trading the overall direction of trend and momentum using pivots and trend meter. That's pretty much all the requirements here. So it's pretty much the same strategy with one extra requirement, where you identify the zone and you want to confirm that the momentum is actually pushing away from it. So it's pretty much the same strategy. The only difference is that this will give you a better confirmation. That's why whenever I see these 2 line up, I'm like almost sure that the trade's going to hit, because you already have a high probable strategy right here. This one almost always hits as well. But when you have this one, added on, it's like that extra push to make you confident that it's actually going to really push, and there's going to be like little to no drawdown.
Yeah, so identify momentum signal, draw zone.
Yeah, so here's step 1 over here on this strategy is the same requirement as step 4 here, because you're looking for a momentum signal right here, and you're also looking for momentum signal on the 4 minute right here. So these are the same requirements.
Correct.
The only
difference, you're drawing it.
Yeah, exactly. This one you're drawing it. So the only difference here would be step 2 and step 3. Everything else is the same. That's the main difference.
So this morning, when you were looking, you said, "Oh, these didn't quite hit that zone."
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't we take momentum scalps during that time then, instead of, because it doesn't look like in momentum scalp it needs to hit the zone.
Yeah, so there was no momentum scalps this morning because the 10 minute and 5 minute never aligned.
Oh, they didn't align. That's right.
Yeah, so that was the thing that we were waiting for. So that's kind of what was throwing us off for the most part, because we were waiting for, like, what would happen is we would get a sell confirmation here on the 5, and then there'd be no sell confirmation here on the 10, right? So it kind of, we wouldn't have everything lined up at the times that we needed to. So like, for example, I just go back and rewind this to the session this morning. Let's see, let me just go and play this forward a little bit. Yeah, it's like about 8 o'clock, I believe, or 8:30 actually. So looking at this here, you can see that there was never really a time where everything aligned perfectly. There was an entry that came up, but it came up like later, like around 8:34. So like literally at the time I left the live session, that's when the entry came up, and go figure, it always happens. So looking over here, this is pretty much the live session for the entire morning. We had a sell entry here, and I'm gonna go and I'll just so what I'll do here is I'll start from like the beginning of the session, or not the beginning, but the entry time. So there's actually an entry right here, but you can see that there was no sell signal that was actually closed. So the entry happened here at 6:59, and there was a pending sell signal right here on the 5. So this actually didn't close yet. So we didn't have the confirmation of momentum here. So in order to take the momentum scalp, you need to have momentum confirmed on pretty much all the time frames.
Yeah, so the red bar in the middle in the 5-minute wasn't there. The red, it was showing off and on, wasn't it? Blinking off and on at that time.
Exactly, yeah, because this candle hadn't closed yet. This entry happened at 6:59, and this candle didn't close until 7 o'clock. So like a minute later, we're like just a minute off.
So to me, that's an entry, but it's okay. So it's below the zone. So this is the momentum one where you don't need the zone, because all we were looking for was all three to align, because it's not, if you go back to this LH here, I don't know if I'm still, yeah, here. Sorry, I guess it went and I didn't realize it, and then it drew it. So here, this is the zone, but we don't need it for this because we were also checking all these, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So for this strategy here, the high lows don't matter. The only time you'd look for that is if you're applying the other one. But I whenever I analyze the charts, I look for both. So I look for momentum scalp, and then I also add on the high low to confirm it, so that if that's the case and we have the zone here, then it's probably for sure going to hit. And it was.
And how do you get multiple charts on one screen like this? I have 4 screens I trade on anyway. But how in the world do you get charts to shrink down and fit to the screen on 3 like this?
Oh yeah, if you click on this button right here, so you can see next to your chart name, there's like a select layout button.
Yep.
If you click
there,
that,
okay.
And then you can choose as many screens as you like if you want. And
so right now you have 3, which would be the one that's highlighted there. Okay.
Yeah, it'd be the 3
you're just on top part of it there with but that's okay. I got it.
Oh, my face. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got your face right there. That's okay. Yeah, so that's down here at the bottom, this red bar.
Yes.
I turned it off. So this red bar down here. So this is momentum.
So this would be the
trend.
Yeah, the one down here would be trend, and the vertical lines would be momentum.
Momentum, yeah. And so over here where it doesn't show a trend, it doesn't matter, because we didn't have a red here though. I was thinking for some reason we had red here. It's green here, so it wouldn't have been a sell because we don't have the red down. The red bar.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So this is the issue that we ran into pretty much the entire session. They would never line up. Like we would have the 5-minute that would be a sell, and then we'd have the 10-minute that would be a buy. And that's why we were waiting for the 10-minute to shift, because once it shifts to a sell, then we're clear for an entry. But since that never happened, we were basically just waiting, and it just never came.
Yeah, no, this is really helpful. I know it's just like for you, you're going like, man, what is this guy asking like the same question like 40 times?
Oh no, this helps. This helps for me too, because it forces me to, reinforce my knowledge. So it's good.
Well, and I look at it kind of from your point. Like this morning, even me that's been with you for a while was confused as to why we weren't looking for it to hit off this high low over here in its zone, and I was just like, what in the heck? I was even confused this morning, but luckily we didn't do a lot this morning, because I think every entry that I even marked up as a possibility lost this morning.
Oh, it's a good
I
thing.
would have lost my tail. I sometimes I just draw a line and say I'm going to buy here and just test it later, and none of them worked. Like it was like crazy. Like they would have worked if I would have put a bigger stop loss, but I just didn't have a big enough stop loss for them, and it just moved too quick. So that's where we're at today.
Today was a tricky day. I think it was tricky for a lot of people. I'm glad that I didn't get greedy, and like I did kind of fall into a trade after the session, but luckily I pulled out with profit, even though it did push right into TP, and it dropped I think like 1,000 pips after. The thing was that I caught my mistake and I pulled out with profit, because of course I'd rather have some profit than have a total loss.
Yeah. So can you go to current right now on
Oh,
these
what's that?
charts? Can you make your charts current?
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. Let's go.
Let's not do a replay. Let's look at where we're at.
Yep, so
Just
we're
for
right here.
fun. I mean, I don't think there's anything here, but we're all green. No, that's good.
So yeah, everything here except for the 10-minute. So the 10-minute over here is neutral with regard to the trend, because
Trend, yeah.
price, yeah, price is like in between the pivots. The trend meter here is blue, so there's no bullish trend right here. However, if this was bullish, well, technically you could take an entry here. I think this would kind of line up with it because you can see that this is actually moving to the upside. It's just that it wouldn't be a good entry, right? Like you take this, but I consider this risky and not one that I would necessarily want to take. But I know from like other people, they would probably anticipate this as this is going to end up being up there anyways. So if they see a buy signal here, they might be inclined to take this for a buy. However, the thing that I would be most wary about is you can see how the volatility is super slow, because if you look at the markup here for the 1 minute, you can see how wide your stop loss is. And this is 300 pips. This is the normal stop loss. So you definitely don't want to trade in a market like this because the volatility is just not there. Plus, if you look at the spread's currently at 24 right now, or 25. So it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, yeah, the spread's off. Well, I like current too, to kind of
Yeah.
just see where it is. I've traded after hours and done fine on gold, and then it just ends up just it'll go for a while. I can be super successful, and then boom, it just kills you. And
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just out of
definitely.
gold. It's a mess, man.
Yeah, I know. The thing I hate the most is when you're in the position and you're anticipating it to hit your TP like right away, and you just end up in that position for hours. You know, it always happens, especially with US 30. I think this is probably the worst time to enter a trade. If I do trade after hours or a night session, I would typically trade between 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. my time, because that would typically be where volatility starts to pick up for London session.
Yeah, 9 and 11 is my uh, equivalent to that. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Yeah, basically, yeah, I think it would line up with it. Yeah, it's basically a few hours away from London Open.
So London opens at let's see, they open at 11 our time, my time, I think, 10 your time, right?
They open midnight my time actually, so 12 p.m. my or 12 a.m. my time, Pacific.
So they open at 1 my time.
Hour ahead.
I'm an hour ahead of you.
Oh, so
Right.
this trade here actually hit. Look, the one on the 1 minute.
See what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Everything I marked up this morning, it didn't work, but now it's working. So
Yeah, it looks like volatility is starting to pick up a little bit. I mean, it's not, I mean, it is kind of spiky, but it's not necessarily as smooth as I'd like. Hopefully tomorrow will be better. I don't really see news for tomorrow, so I don't see any catalysts really pushing price around. But if you're looking at historical data, US 30 is typically bullish towards the end of the year. So I think if it doesn't happen this week, probably next week, we'll start to have a bullish run for US 30. If you look back at US 30, pretty much like what I like to do sometimes is I'll go on the daily chart and I'll just look back, previous years, same time. And you'll see here that it's typically pretty bullish. So if we go to December of last year, 2021, you can see right here, December 3rd. So today's December 5th, right? It was bearish up until December 6th, and it was just bullish from there, shot up. So it's historically bullish towards the end of the year. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for. Same with here in 2020. You can see here, 2020 December, price was kind of dropping down around early December right here. December up until December 15th, and then it just had a big bullish push until the end of the year. So I'm expecting the same thing to happen this year. It's just going to be a matter of time until it happens.
yeah, I anticipate something like that too. But I'll tell you, I've been wrong a lot about those lately because of mostly just the interest rates. If they come out next week, so they come out on the 13th and 14th with their, is it 12th and 13th or something next week they're going to announce. But everyone's anticipating 50 points instead of 75 points. So if they announce that, I think we're going to be bullish for the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And I agree as well. We're in such a weird time. It's not like where you can really predict things as easily as you could in the past. I mean, even COVID was a little bit tricky, but I don't know. It's just, I'm not sure like what they're going to release as well. I do agree with you. If they do release, 50 instead of 25 or 75, it should be bullish as well. So
like today, for example, I'm a level 3 with with TD, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Level 3, which it's hard to get level 3 with them. But anyway, I got level 3 and I was watching the orders and stuff. But how does like Kevin get those, or is he on? He must be on Thinkorswim to get those.
Yeah, he uses Thinkorswim as well. I don't know if he's level 3 or are you talking about a different platform? Level 3?
No, level 3 would be with TD and Ameritrade. When you get level 3 clearance, you can do options, you can do anything, but it gives you also those signals that are like all those e-mini, buy order flows and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think he is too.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I'm not sure if I was level 3. I know I was level 2, but I don't think it, because I never traded futures on TD, so I never really applied for the level 3. But I was on level 2 because I was trading options and stocks, a while back, and Forex. Yeah, but I've seen level 3 before, and yeah, I'm pretty sure he does, because he does look at the order flow on there. I was thinking about even keeping my TD Ameritrade open just to look at order flow during the live session, but I don't think it's really all that necessary unless I really needed it, because the strategies we're using now don't require it. Aside from the breakout, I think the breakout would be useful.
Yeah. So I really appreciate everything. Have you gotten a check? I'm mostly with TFF. Now I have FTMO, but I have one FTMO and a couple TFFs, like 3 of them. So is TFF paying right now?
So I've only received one payout from them so far, because it took me a while to like get the account started up again. And then unfortunately now I have to go and redo it because they're not letting me change my email. So I'm gonna have to go and start a brand new account. So they did pay out to me last month, or I think early this month, or no, we're in December already. So like, yeah, last month in November, they did pay out. I've heard from others that they've had issues for this month. So there's one guy in our group, his name's JJ. He requested his payout, and they gave him this whole runaround and told him he had to wait like 14 days. And then he asked them directly, so can I trade on the account? And they're like, yeah, you can trade on your account. As soon as he took the trade, they said, okay, we can't pay you out. We have to they gave him another runaround where they told him that he has to wait another 14 to 30 days. So I'm not sure what's going on right now, because I haven't received my payout date. I haven't requested the payout, but hopefully they're going to be paying out. I know they've been kind of fishy. They're probably the lower end of prop firms that I would use, but they've had issues in the past. So
yeah, MFF is hard for me because of their system just isn't hooked up as good as TFF right now.
Their execution times are the worst. If you look at all my profits, it's always off on MFF. I feel like their execution times might be a second or two late, which is unfortunate, because even like for the entries that are not even fast moving, I still get out for less profit. It kind of blows my mind. Even if it's a very slow move and it reaches TP and it just sits there for like X amount of time, I still lose out on maybe a couple $100 compared to my MFF and my my FTMO and my TFF. So
yeah, TFF seems to be ahead of MFF, but the payout I think is better. I think people are getting them on MFF.
Yeah, they're probably number 2. So it's always going to be FTMO number 1, of course. MFF may be number 2, and then TFF is obviously going to be number 3. I think TFF uses the same data as FTMO, so that's why the profits are kind of similar. I think MFF uses this other company called ECAP, I believe, which they don't really like scalpers too much. So that's where the issue runs.
Well, and they used to be fabulous, by the way. they changed something, man. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
Have you tried anybody else though? Because I need to open one more account, and I don't really want to go to. Well, I could go to MFF, but with that issue, I'm thinking I might try.
Yeah, I haven't used any other ones because there's so many companies out there, and all the ones that are also kind of well known. I think the Funded Trader was one of the ones that a lot of people are using now. A long time ago, they had a lot of issues. So when they first started, they had a ton of issues. They didn't allow for scalpers to trade on their platform, so I didn't even bother with them. I heard they've gotten better, but I haven't actually tried them out myself. There's a couple other companies that are out there that are a bit big as well, but they either don't allow copiers or they're on different platforms. There's this, I think, company called Top Step Trader,
Yeah.
which they'll let you trade the actual future, but it's not MC4, so I can't copy my trade. So there's kind of no point in me using them. There's also Surge Trader, which allows you to trade directly on TradingView, which is really cool. But they also don't let you attach a copier. So it just invalidates all my other accounts. So it's kind of, do I want all my accounts or do I want to use this other broker?
Yeah. So you're probably like me. You're probably sticking with FTMO, MFF, and TFF.
Yeah, for the time being, until something else comes along. The space, the thing with the funding company space is that it's revolving. It's always revolving. So I think by next year, there's probably going to be another handful of new companies that hopefully other people have tried, so we don't have to go and be the test subjects for those companies.
Yeah. Before I was with you, I had a guy that was always trying different prop firms, and he's got a pretty good system, but he's been nailed by a couple others, and he's back to these two. So there's one out of Minnesota that was supposed to be just fabulous, and that thing just did not even work at all.
Do you know which one? What was it called?
Yeah, I could probably find it. I don't remember right now, but let me see if I can. It was US, and let's see.
There was another one in Texas. I believe it was like I can't remember what it was called. It was like a weird name. It had like a pink website.
Yeah, there's one. The one I'm thinking of was I gotta find it here. It was right on the tip of my tongue, but it was out of Minnesota, and I tried a real small, like a 10,000, just to give them a test, and I didn't have very good success with them. But they claim they fixed everything. This guy's saying they fixed everything now out of Minnesota, and then the one out of Texas, I think, is also newer, right?
I think it was called E8. That's what it was called. The one in Texas. Yeah, I heard they didn't. Well, there was a lot of these. So there's a lot of these funding companies, but there's a lot of them that also don't allow for scalpers. So that's the issue too, because we scalp, so it's it's a little difficult. The problem with scalpers for a lot of these funding companies is that we're taking sort of big orders, and it's going to be hard for them to execute them in a real time market. So I do see where their issues arise, but it just becomes an issue for us, of course, because we would need that to be available.
Yeah. Out of all the companies I ever tried, that one out of Minnesota was the very best. Next to TFF, like their site and stuff is fabulous. It just, I don't think it's, I don't know. I was giving him some more time to figure out if it was really going to work. The owners and stuff were like, even like calling me at one time saying, "Hey, we really want you just to try this. So-and-so referred you, Ruben referred you." And I was like, "Well, I haven't traded with Ruben forever." Like, "Oh no, you need to try our prop firm. He said you'd be awesome." And I kind of told them what we were doing, and they were fine with it, but I can't find the name of it right now. There's First Class Forex Fund, but that's not that. Is that it? That might be it.
Oh, really? That one of the guys in our group, he actually owns that.
It might be that. Is he out of Minnesota?
They're in New Jersey, but basically same area.
Does he allow scalping?
I have no idea. I know the people who own it. I haven't really got any details. They're in our group, actually, the people who own that company. We're gonna work out something to for me to promote their company, but I haven't used them yet, so I can't really say.
Well, let me look here. So, oh, that's out of. You're right. That's not it. The site's green, so I just pulled it up. That's green. That's not it.
Yeah.
That's one he's telling me to try though.
Yeah, a lot of people are starting to use that one. I don't have any opinion on them because I know the people who run it, so they're good people, but I just I don't know how the actual platform works, because I know there's a lot of issues that arise with funding companies, especially just starting out. Liquidity, execution times. I don't want to get into the whole issue of trading with a new company like that, because I don't want to get stuck with.
It's not worth it unless they give you like a deal and you can kind of vouch for it. I mean, they have a great site. I'm on it right now. I clicked on it, but that's not the one from this. It's something real similar to that. The name is real similar. If I see it, I'll throw it in the chat. I know you probably got other things, and I appreciate your time. I'm looking here, and I had it here the other day, and I was checking it again to see if they were still around, and they are. But they were from Minnesota, and they were supposed to be really good, but I didn't necessarily think so right at first, but they're claiming they got everything fixed. But if you know somebody in our group that's got this, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. They were actually admins in our group. So I started trading with them a long time, or I didn't start trading with them, but they started trading with me a long time ago. And then this was actually my idea to like, start a prop firm and stuff, but I never really went through with it because there was just too many loopholes and there was just too many issues with things that could possibly go wrong. So it wasn't on the top of my plate. So they ended up, following through with the idea of starting a prop firm, and they actually got it going. Take a lot of capital to start up. So it's a bit of a risky, like the thing that happens with prop firms that makes it really risky is when someone passes and you give them their refund, but then they end up blowing all the money on the next month. That's where you kind of like run into a lot of issues, because then you'll end up being out of their challenge fee. Plus you'll be out of an account as well if you're copying the trades.
So do you think they're going live at that point and then you trade real money, or you think they're still just demoing and just paying out off of the others? That's where I've always been confused. Like they all say it's all demo, right? So but you're saying it's just the money from them paying that you refunded, but
yeah, for the most part, I think a lot of companies when they first start out is that they pay out through challenge fees. I think that's how it typically is done, because in order to like really fund these accounts realistically, it's going to cost a lot, right? Because you're going to have to fund X amount of accounts that are funded, and yeah, of course you'll make some money back on it, but majority of people are not going to be consistently profitable trading. It's really, people get that trade high where they'll be good for a couple weeks, couple months, and then they'll fall off, and then everything goes to hell from that point.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, I can't find the name of that right now, but I'll put it in the chat later, just you and my chat. If you wouldn't mind just sending me those requirements on those things we talked about today, those two strategies, the momentum and
no, definitely. I'll send that over to you. I also make videos for them, so I'll probably try to upload those by this week. I'll send you the requirements here though, so you can have them just for yourself.
I like to have them kind of written down. I do watch your videos quite often in that. I just, for me, it's nice to have them written down. I know that's kind of counterintuitive to what you kind of like to teach, but it works for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I agree with you too. Like, I think when you write things down, it kind of forces you to like review it and really understand. So I am with you on that it's a good idea to write them down sometimes, because if you don't get it through video or through, actual communication, you're going to get it through actually writing it down and repetition.
Yeah, that's where I need to be. Well, they're pretty easy strategies, but just having it there to kind of keep me on course is really, really going to help, I think. I just was scanning through just real quick before I jump off that, because I just had this up the other day and I was looking at it as Minnesota. I have relatives in Minnesota, is why I kind of like Minnesota. I think a lot of good financial firms are out there. I used to be with Allianz and a couple of great firms. And so there's a lot of good financial people out there in Minnesota. So I thought these guys were going to do pretty well. And I just don't think so. I mean, they might in the future, but yeah, there's certainly, but this first class might be something.
Yeah, no, definitely.
They're kind of similar to TFF in a way, because they want 8% and not 10 on the first phase and 5 on they got 5 on the second, which is higher than TFF, and they have a minimum daily, it looks like. But anyway, all right.
Yeah, no. So yeah, if I ever try them, I'll let you know. Or if I figure out any other companies that I decide to try, I'll let you know. I'm very picky and selective about which companies I decide to use. Also because I don't want to recommend companies that are gonna not be good for the community. Because I know once I start using them, other people are gonna want to use them, and I don't want people to get suckered into like things that don't really work as well as we would have anticipated. So
yeah, I totally agree, and I just wish MFF would get going again, because I could actually I could buy another MFF account and I'd be happy as heck. I'm having so many execution errors, not errors. When you get money, it's like you said, when you're getting money, it's hard to say like, oh, they're not doing it, but they're kind of cutting the money down.
Yeah, they're finding ways to cut down, of course, which
just execution. I mean, to me, it's pretty simple, right? You either turn it on full speed and it's running super high speed, or you slow it down, and that split second. I mean, even like a tenth of a second can make thousands of difference when you're trading 100 lots. It can move just slightly, and that's what they're doing. I know they are, but I don't think that's meaning like they're horrible. It is what it is. It's just that's what they're doing. But yeah, I just can't see this here. But yeah, I'll throw it in there. But I'll quit looking. It keeps coming up. I searched it and it keeps coming up with new things. But anything else that I should know? Or thank you for your time, by the way. I was going to come to California and I haven't been down lately, so I'm coming for we're going on a cruise the first of the year, and I'm going to the Long Beach, cruise port for Carnival on the 2nd. But I was like, man, one of these times I'm going to go down there and take that dude to dinner. And I used to go down there for work all the time, and I haven't even been down there lately.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know we've both been busy. Likewise with myself. I'm trying to get this new course revamp up. So hopefully I'll get it up by the end of the year. Just doing a lot of recording, producing every day. So
yeah, how many strategies are you going to put in there?
Just the same, the ones that we've been covering. So basically the ones that we covered today for the live sessions, and then also maybe 1 or 2 strategies for Forex, which would be intraday and swing trading type strategies. Basically the strategies I use for the signals. I don't personally like to take them as much. So I'm very selective with the entries that I decide to take, but I'm just trying to make it, an open playing field for everyone who likes to still apply those strategies as well. But I personally don't like holding on to trades for too long. So yeah, not my favorite.
Yeah, I can be hit or miss on that. I like to trade long term for the bigger profit possibility, but man, when they start to go bad, your stop loss is further too.
Yeah, so, exactly. And then you're holding on to that trade for so long, so you're thinking about it, consistently.
Yeah, it can wear you out, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't like. I think it can wear. I've just been better off just trading morning, shutting it down, going doing something else. More I trade, the more possibility I can lose, and that's just not. I've learned that from you. So thank you very much, and I'll talk to you tomorrow morning, or I'll say hello. I haven't even been saying that much because I literally got like 4 or 5 people that were just like, "Hey, tell us what you're doing and do this and do that." And I'm like, dude, I'm having a hard time keeping up with everything myself. I can't talk to you. But I felt like they were kind of scamming me or something, but maybe they were just guys from the group that were fine. I don't know. I just don't respond well to that. I mean, not that I wouldn't mind helping somebody, but it's not like what I'm doing.
Yeah, you always got to focus on yourself first, of course.
Well, I mean, you do a good enough job. I don't need to, but they're like, but your profits are a little bit higher. And I'm like, yeah, but that's just where I'm at now. I might not be there next month or whatever. It's just, that's kind of how I was reading those signals and stuff. And I just tried to say, just watch the video, keep watching more videos and you'll get it,
Yeah, no, exactly. You got to put in the work. That's really what it is.
It's the work, and it's keeping yourself from trading. To me, it's just not trading too much. It's just shutting down and being done. That's
keeping hold of your profits rather than losing them on the later sessions.
Yeah, I've done it where I've gone up, 3 or 4 grand in a day, and then I, hit 2 losses and I'm down 2 because I'm up 4 and then I'm down 2 on a 30. Stop loss. So you're down 600, 6 grand. It's like, what? But anyway, thank you so much for your time. I'll see you tomorrow on the screen at least, and say hello, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, definitely, Ross. It was great talking to you. I'll see you tomorrow on the live session.